Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Pick Six. I'm your host, Mike Wobschall at TCO Performance Center in Eagan. The Vikings are getting ready for preseason game number 3 behind me, and I'm ready to answer your questions right now, so let's get to work. The first question comes from Michael. What are the odds we can keep 4 running backs? With the way Rock Thomas and Mike Boone have played, it will be hard to choose. No doubt about it, Thomas and Boone have combined for over 200 yards of offense and 3 touchdowns the last 2 games. So those guys have heated up that RB3 competition. Throw Mac Brown in there as well, who's got a chance to flash over the last 2 preseason games. And the Vikings have some depth at running back behind Latavius Murray, Dalvin Cook, and CJ Ham. It'll be interesting to see how this thing shakes out over the rest of the preseason. Question number 2 comes from Laura. What's the probability that our starting offensive linemen play in week 1? Any updates on Pat Elflein returning? Well, the good news, Laura, is head coach Mike Zimmer sounded pretty optimistic about Rashad Hill, Mike Remmers, and Pat Elflein after the second preseason game. So we'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks, but I'd expect to see Remmers and Hill back pretty quickly, and I think Elflein has a chance to play most of the regular season as well. Question number 3 comes from Mark in Dallas. What did you make of our second team defense looking so good against the Jaguars on Saturday? Well, I thought it was a positive step forward for that second team defense. They've looked good all of camp, and they look good against a starting unit on Saturday night. A couple of players who really stood out to me: Stephen Weatherly at defensive end, Ifeadi Adenabo, who can play inside or outside, and I thought Jaleel Johnson had a good game against the Jaguars as well. We already know the Vikings have a great starting 4 plus a 5th defensive lineman in Brian Robinson, but it's awesome to see guys like Adenabo and Tashawn Bauer and Jaleel Johnson stepping up as well. The next question comes from Toby in Alaska. Do you think we will be a balanced offense, or will we feature the run or the pass more? Well, Toby, I think the goal is to be balanced, so that if you're playing a team that struggles in one particular area, you have the tools to take advantage of that. That's what John DeFilippo wants to establish here in Minnesota. The good news is, with a quarterback like Kirk Cousins and a strong running game with Latavius Murray and Dalvin Cook, the Vikings are going to be able to move the ball on the ground and through the air. The biggest key, you got to be able to block people. Curtis from Pennsylvania has the next question. Looks like we are not showing a lot in the preseason and saving it for the regular season. Well, Curtis, that's pretty typical for NFL teams. They're not going to show you a bunch of their schemes that they're going to use in the regular season. The preseason is about getting up to speed and getting your team ready for the opener. You will, though, see a little more of the starters in the 3rd preseason game on Friday night against a really good Seattle team. Should be a fun test. The final question comes from Austin. After the highs and lows of the postseason last year, are the boys ready mentally for this season? I think so, Austin. Mentality for this Vikings team, that's not a problem with a head coach like Mike Zimmer. He pays attention to this team's psyche every single day, and he's always working on it. I think John DeFilippo, the offensive coordinator, and Mike Zimmer play key roles in this. Now, the defense has relatively the same players coming back, save the addition of Sheldon Richardson. But Mike Zimmer's not going to let those guys rest on their laurels. Offensively, though, a lot of the core players come back, but you have a new coordinator in DeFilippo and a new quarterback in Kirk Cousins. So those 2 guys are going to make sure this offense stays sharp and gets better. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Pick Six. We'll be back next week after the Seattle game. So watch the game on Friday night and then send me your questions. The email address at the bottom of the screen is where you can send them. Maybe we'll see you next week.